Hey, Ken, I just made you the co-host.
Sounds good.
All right, good evening. I have 7 o'clock. I'm going to open the meeting of the May 26th Conservation Commission. First up is a roll call. Peter,
Here.
Jimmy,
Jimmy, you're on mute.
okay, Ken,
Yes.
Silvana,
Here.
Jim, all right, I see Jim. Jimmy, unmute. All right, we do know that Paul will not be joining us tonight. And I do think Teresa will be joining any minute, but we will start. First up is approve the minutes from May 12th. Any discussion? Questions or comments? Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the minutes from May 12th?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second? Any discussion?
Second. Yeah.
Teresa's just joined. Any discussion on the minutes of May 12th? If not, all in favor? Ken,
Yes.
Jim,
Okay.
you heard that. Teresa,
I said
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Silvana.
Dane.
Okay, I also do vote to approve the minutes of May 12th. All right, first up is 100 Hemlock Road, Northeast Metro Vocational High School, discussion of test pit locations and enforcement order.
Mr. Chair, can you hear me? This is Brian McGrail.
Yes, Brian, I can hear you loud and clear.
I apologize. I don't have my camera on. I'm having technical difficulty, but I'm glad you can hear me. So I'll proceed without my camera. I'll keep trying to work on that. In any event, I'm here representing Northeast Vocational School regarding this matter. With me tonight is, I think, since my camera's a little messed up, I'm going to have the folks that are here with me on behalf of Northeast introduce themselves. Could you do that, Dave Conway? Maybe you can start.
Sure, and then I'll pass it off to Andrea and then to the Kevin and Joe. So I'm Dave Conway, civil engineer, project manager with Niche Engineering.
Andrea Kendall with LEC Environmental Consultants. Kevin?
Kevin Nigro. I'm with PMA Consultants. We're the owner's project manager for the new school.
Hi, everyone. Joe DeSantis with PMA Consultants as well.
Great. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. We're here tonight because, as you know, there's a proposed new high school to be constructed at 100 Hemlock, replacement for the vocational school. And we're in the process of designing. We've gone through a wetlands delineation with your commission that's now complete. And in part of our design phase, we're conducting test holes or test pits along the property, or on the property, I should say. And we received from your commission an enforcement order. In the gist of it was that before you proceed any further with test pits, that you wanted us to submit a plan delineating where the test pits were in relation to the resource area, and to show those. So obviously, we immediately responded. I corresponded with your agent, Rebecca Davis, and said that we will put the plan together. We could not have it in time for last meeting, so we continued, and we made a commitment not to do anything else out there until we came before you, which we've lived up to that commitment. And subsequent to that, we have put a plan together for some remaining test pits that need to be done. We submitted that to Rebecca Davis. We had a meeting with Rebecca and the town engineer to review it. At that meeting, Rebecca suggested that we should also prepare a narrative that would talk about how we were going to access those test pits, in how we were going to do the procedures to minimize any impact on resource protected areas. So we also took her advice, and we have submitted that to your commission in writing. So what we want to report tonight is that we originally had what we thought were 5 test pits to do. We have now abandoned one. We don't need to do that anymore. So we're down to 4 test pits. And if it's okay with you, Mr. Chair, I'd like Dave Conway to kind of go over where those test pits are. And then obviously any of our other team members that have any input that they can provide or answer questions of the commission, we're happy to do so.
Yes, please do.
All right, so I'm going to ask to share my screen, if that helps. I
Yes.
can just pull up the plan.
Yes, you can.
All right. It's host disabled share screening, so.
Let's check again. Okay, try now.
Yep, there we go. All right, folks, see my screen?
Yes.
So here's the overall site. The area I'm going to zoom into is off of Farm Road, just before the high tension wires. The 4 remaining test pits to be done are the ones shown in red. So it's 209, 210, 211, and 212. And the plan is to access them through the existing cart path off of Farm Road using the gate. We would protect the test pits on the wetland side with wattles. This one we're just putting on both sides, straw wattles. We would stay onto the cart path to the extent feasible. And if if we have to reach or just to minimize any sort of vegetation loss. There's a memo that the geotechnical engineer put together regarding the work. I don't know if you've had a chance to review it. I can just run through it in just as an overview, but he included pictures of typical machinery to be used. So just a track excavator. They'll be going to at most 12 feet deep, but most of the test pits have been much shallower due to refusal hitting ledge. When they do the test pits, they'll segregate the organics, or the forest mat or the topsoil from the rest of the test pit material, so that can be put back down on top. When they restore the test holes, they refill it and compact them on 12-inch lifts with the arm of the compactor. And then the last thing they do is just respread the topsoil, the forest mat, and then the wattles will be just cut open, and then the straw strewn about just so they can provide a little bit more cover for the work. Going just back to the plan, just for reference, that's the essential plan. So it's just these 4 that are left, just coming in off the cart path off Farm Road. And they're all in the buffer zone, obviously.
Where was the fifth test pit going to be?
It was going to be like up in here somewhere. But there's no need for it. Oh, can you see my cursor?
Yeah,
I think it was
see
up.
the cursor.
I think it was up in here.
So can I ask a question?
Sure.
So the access route doesn't exist right now?
Yeah, it exists right now.
So what was done to create that access route?
I'm sorry. I mean, it predates.
There's an existing cart path that extends from Farm Street into that property. There's a gate there.
Okay,
So there was a photo at the end of the report. And I'm not sure, maybe on
There
our
it is.
site walk, some members of the commission may or may not have, I don't recall if we walked down in that area.
I think we did.
Yeah. So that's the main route that they would
Okay,
go
so it's already
in.
there. Okay,
Yeah, and then they would just go in perpendicular, taking the path of least resistance, so to speak, to the test pit location.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, that path has been there, I don't know, 30 plus years. I think it was emergency vehicle use at one point, or some sort of access to the power lines. I don't remember.
I think it
Is
goes
that
back,
path,
I think it goes back to firefighting issues, maybe up at Breakheart.
Yeah,
was that path used to access other test pits that were conducted already?
Kevin did
No, I believe they entered from
the west.
Hemlock Road where the gate is, the gatehouse. The only people that access through that, not that gate, but one further up, which is underneath the power lines, was a survey crew of 2 men on foot. They parked their vehicle in the previously disturbed parking area, and they walked up on foot.
Yeah, so Kevin, this is the one they used to access all the ones from the east.
To my knowledge, that is correct. They worked down at the parking lot level and up, and back down to the parking lot each day.
And then obviously there's ones around the existing school, which are just really in developed, pavement areas.
Correct.
And that other path is further upland. That's kind of the rockier area, right?
This one?
I'm just trying to figure out the path that you're proposing. If anyone's noticed it being soft on either side of the path, once you get off the path, if anyone's noticed if there would be any potential rutting, if you would need any kind of matting material for your equipment, so you don't rut the place up, something like.
I mean, it's tough to tell from the pictures, but it looks fairly well drained and compacted. He's even provided pictures of the, this is, it's a little bit out of context. It's tough to see, but it's photos of actually where the test pits are relative. You don't really see anything. It doesn't look wet, but it's.
I've gone through that path many times, and so have my neighbors. As you know, Bob Brooks from June Circle, one of the abutters.
Bob,
Yeah.
we'll open it up to questions or comments.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry
no
about
problem.
It just, it might be a good idea to have matting material in the case there's any softer soil or ruts, to prevent any of that turning of the rig, traveling off of the main path. That just.
Yeah, and we can actually have them restore any of their, just re-tamp down if they do end up doing any.
I have a question. How are you going to ensure that you're not going to knock down some trees when you're bringing this excavation in there while you're doing the test pit?
I mean, if, again, the intent is to basically limit any sort of damage to any of the vegetation. This is not, you know.
Okay, but I'm looking at some of the pictures and I see some trees. So I see a lot of trees, especially on number one. So, and the machine, I'm assuming, is very big. So how are you going to ensure that you don't knock down any trees?
So that's a mini excavator. It isn't that large. If you want
It
to go
isn't
back to
that?
the picture.
All right.
That picture, the scale of that picture is a little
So it's
fun.
tough to tell. There's no background.
Yeah,
But by title, it's a mini excavator.
What's the width of that cart path? Roughly?
It's about 8 to 10
Okay.
feet wide.
When would you be looking to do these test pits?
Kevin?
Well, the contractor demobilized from the site and we have to get back on his schedule. Depending on the outcome of this meeting, we were going to contact him as soon as possible to get a schedule out of him. But it's looking like later June, maybe even July, when he had demobilized. So I don't have a 100% solid date, but we were going to reach out to him again, depending on what the wish of the board is. Committee, sorry.
I was under the impression that borings were exempt from, was an exempt activity, but these test pits, why are you doing test pits instead of borings?
Just the nature of the exploration, just to get it, you know, sometimes with the borings, you'll get depth to refusal, but maybe not a great soil profile.
Well, don't you get a sample when you take the core out?
It gets a little beat up sometimes coming out, so.
You get any more beat up than the bucket on the machine.
Yeah, I mean, we can, if you want, we can ask the geotechnical engineer.
Yeah, because I'm not sure that these test pits are an exempt activity.
This is Andrea Kendall. I do just want to read what the regulations say, because it does clarify that these kind of exploratory features are.
Cite the regulation on it so I can look it up.
Sure. It says activities that are temporary in nature, having negligible impacts and are necessary for planning and design purposes.
Yeah.
E.g., it doesn't say i.e., which is very specific. So they give examples. Installation of monitoring wells, exploratory borings, sediment sampling, and survey and percolation tests for septic systems, provided that resource areas are not crossed for the site. So these kind of test pits fall in that category.
Well, I don't know. I think that's debatable.
Well, it doesn't say IE, but that's, I'm open to have that conversation, but regardless, I mean.
It lists boring as a, you know, at least it calls out boring, doesn't it?
Right, but you're also not doing a perk test without doing a test pit or septic explorations. Those are the only two allowed
The idea
explorations.
is that, I guess the concept is that you want to put a core down there that's not going to do a lot of disruption. And to me, the best way to do that is to do core samples, you know, go down with the machine and drill a core out. You can always get this profile of the soils out of the core. And you'd have a lot less destruction, I believe, unless the right rig is too big. That's the way I read it.
Were you planning on doing a perk test in the hole and?
Well, we'd like to see if there's any soil modeling to pick groundwater up, and it's kind of tough. That's really, it has to be done through a test pit.
Do you go into refusal or you just going 12 feet?
Whichever comes first.
So if it's deeper than 12 feet, you're gonna go deeper than 12 feet.
No, the reach of the machine is only 12 feet, so we
I
can.
know that, well, that's what I was gonna get at. You probably need a larger machine.
Not bringing another machine on. That's it.
they don't intend to go deeper than 12 feet is, I think maybe you misheard, but it was whichever one comes first, meaning 12 or something sooner, never further.
Mhm. Okay. Well, in my mind, that's the right tool for this is a boring machine and to do test borings, not test pits.
Is the applicant open to test borings as opposed to pits?
You know,
I think you just, I think we're just delaying the inevitable. I've never been on a project that didn't do both. That weren't needed for the engineer to do the correct profile. The town engineer has also asked for us to let him know when there's some test pits going on. He'd like to see the soil profile in to see where the water is as well. We had planned on calling him. So I don't know where the interpretation stands, but you know, we're down to these 4. We've made some adjustments to stay out of, you know, the resource area and thought this was a good approach. The test pits are beneficial to engineering, as everybody knows.
Have you gone down to up to 12 feet at other test pits that have been completed so far?
I can't, I do not have any draft reports of the borings yet. While I was on site, but I didn't go near the open excavation or, so I can't speak to the specific depths.
I'm just wondering how big of excavations you've had so far, just to give Jimmy a sense of disturbance of a test pit rather than a.
Twice the size of a desktop was probably the biggest one. And then they did a nice job putting the soils back and again, taking the environmental mat, and it was, you know, they did a nice job trying to clean up, I thought. Again, nothing atypical that I haven't seen on any other test pit and boring project.
The geotechnical engineer said most have only gone no deeper than 5 to 6, but that doesn't exclude that these could be deeper.
Yeah, never know. We are lower, so we were up much higher into the rock profile probably before.
What is the diameter of a typical test pit?
Well, they're rectangular, so it's usually like it depends how deep it is because you got to put someone down there to log it. But you know, say if it's like 5 feet deep, then it will probably be about 4 feet wide.
Okay, so we're talking 4 feet wide versus a bore. Okay, I just want to put it in perspective. Thank you.
Right, and how big is a boring?
4 to 6 inches. I mean, but I'm going to need to do test pits as the design engineer. I'm going to need to understand where the water is and where the modeling is. It's part of the regs. You know, so we can, you know, if there's additional measures that, or we can walk the site before we do the test pits with the machine, or we could walk the site after we do the test pits, but there's just certain information that as the engineer that is required as part of the, you know, what, not only the Wetland Protection Act, but also the stormwater regs that we're going to need.
Rebecca,
Yes.
do you have any comments or suggestions?
Maybe someone wants to be out there when this is all going on, if that would alleviate any of your concerns. I think, yeah, typically borings and test pits and whatnot are minor activities as long as you know, they don't have adverse impacts, potential for any adverse impacts to the resource areas. So I think that's typically how it goes. I think you guys can see what they're going to use to get there and recognize that they'll need to clear a path through the woods at a minimum of the, you know, the size of the machine. They have erosion controls down, and they're gonna put it back. I mean, I know you're concerned with the clearing, but from what I understand, and this is not a project, but this will all be cleared anyway for a road. So I suppose that you could just ask to maybe walk the site after. That's not a bad idea. I actually kind of like that idea.
I like the idea of having you or Elaine, there during the digging.
Okay.
I have no problem coordinating that with Rebecca. We can do that.
Yeah.
That mini excavator's what, like 7 feet wide, 8 feet wide, probably?
I just Googled it. It's 5 foot 7 inches to 5 foot 11 inches wide.
Okay.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah. Probably could have just gave you the middle ground there, but I didn't want to misspeak.
Mr. Chair, I think it's a good idea to have your agents, one of your agents there, and to do a walk afterwards, because that just alleviates any controversy after the fact.
Great.
Do you know how long it's going to take to do all 4 of them? Is that a couple of days probably? Considering tracking.
Depends how quickly you hit.
So you might want to check out each location first. See the paths to get to each location.
I think we have, and Rebecca and I have been out there together.
Okay.
At this,
Oh yeah.
they look, there's gonna, there's a judgment call. We'll move the machine. We don't have to be right on the dime. We can move to the left and right and find the path of least resistance that won't take down any mature trees and maybe just scrub brush. We can work with Rebecca out in the field to do that. But Dave will give us some limitations on how far he wants to stray from those, and I'm sure we can work it out in the field.
I can go, I'll be out there too.
Great. There you go.
And what I can do is I can take some photographs, like a before and after situation, and then show you guys at one of the meetings.
Any other questions or concerns from the commission?
I have a question. Are borings and test pits also exempt under like the natural heritage priority habitat MESA type of regulations?
Am I mute? Let's see.
No, okay.
Okay, great. I don't have those regulations in front of me. I could check, but my understanding is that they are. So, but that's a whole nother layer of discussions that we would coordinate separately with natural heritage if it's required, which I don't think it is. My apologies.
I have a little something up that I can read. Where'd it go? It does say exemptions for review for projects and activities in priority habitat. And it says number 14 is the performance of customary land surveying activities, wetland delineations, perk tests, environmental assessments, investigations performed, and other preliminary site investigations, provided that vegetation clearing and soil alteration are avoided and minimized to the maximum extent practicable. So that's really the only information I found.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you need, if they like how sometimes under the Wetland Protection Act, they get a copy of what the activity is and they make some type of determination. Is that not required for these?
That's not my understanding. So, yeah, and on top of that, it's not in, while it might be mapped, and I'd have to verify if that section of the project is, it's not in the specific habitat of the selected species.
So it doesn't go by like just the priority habitat delineation that's on the map?
They canvass the whole site, but it's not that, but species specific, they don't utilize that specific area. But whatever the regulations say, and you just read them, there's any exempt activity doesn't need any further vetting from natural heritage.
Okay.
All right, any other questions or concerns from the commission? Jim, how are you? What's your thoughts right now?
I don't have any thoughts right now.
Anything else from the commission at this point? All right, any questions from the public?
Bob, I have a comment that it was talked about earlier about the wetlands area along that area in the Vero Pond. And those pictures show a nice dry area, and I've been at.
Hey, Bob, just for the record, identify your.
Oh, I'm
name.
sorry, Bob Brooks, 7 June Circle,
Thank you.
one of the abutters. Sorry about that, Bob.
That's okay.
But I've been up that path quite a few times, and a lot of times it's soaking wet, it's mud. You can't go by it. You got to turn around and go by, back and go up the other side where the ledge is, just to get around it. Sometimes you can, if you got boots on, you can jump from rock to rock. But there's a lot of water there when it comes down from the hill. And if that Vero Pond on the right-hand side fills up, it starts going into the wetland. So it does get very, very wet in that area. Sometimes that dry picture doesn't give the whole year-round view of what really is there.
I do want to add that we're not taking the path all the way up to the non-jurisdictional isolated vegetated wetland. I know the path currently goes through that wetland, but they're not taking the vehicles up in that route to access the test pit locations.
Yeah, I was just describing that area from Farm Street going up along that red line that was on that chart.
Mhm.
And I know how it goes in between the Vero Pond and the wetlands area. The question I have, was this test boring and test pits that you want to put, was this originally planned in the beginning, or is this additional to some other factors that made this happen?
Mr. Chair, if I could just make a point of order, Mr. Chair, this, with all due respect, this isn't a public hearing. This is an enforcement order for us to resolve how we're going to do our test pits with the commission. It's not to be.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's my position on it. I don't think it's frankly appropriate that we're going to have questions and cross-examinations. This is just simply, this is pretty simple. And it's really between the applicant and the commission. It's not a public process. It's in fact a procedure that's exempt under the regulations. We're here because we were asked to be. We're complying with your enforcement request, but it's not a public process. It's not a public hearing.
No, it's not, but we can give, the public a chance to ask questions, clarify, and understand exactly what's happening, especially about butters.
Well, I don't think it's appropriate that we're going to talk about why we're doing test holes.
Well,
that's part of our process
Yeah.
for planning, and that's our business. It's certainly not, it's not a public process.
yeah, I mean, test pits or test holes or borings are required to, this is for you, Bob, to check the condition of the soil or what's underneath it. So it is normal procedure to do test pits or borings on any site. So that would be normal procedure for anything, whether it's a house, a road, or anything. So that is typical.
All right, thank you.
All right. Anything else from the commission? All right. So what's the next step to move forward? Brian, what are we?
I think what we can do is we can revise our correspondence to agree that we are going to arrange that when we do these, Kevin, right, that we will make arrangements for either Rebecca or Elaine to be in present. And then that we will commit that we will, that they can if they deem necessary, because maybe they don't when they leave, but they can, there can be a visit to look at where the activity occurred.
No problem with that at all.
So we would, I guess we could amend our narrative to include that as a commitment.
Oh, and it should be said that I don't know what the standards and practices of the Conservation Commission are, but it is considered an activity that you should be wearing PPE. If you don't have it, you let me know. I'll get you some hard hats and vests, and we can meet in a designation and suit you up and head up the hill. Down the hill, sorry.
So is Rebecca, if you go out, does that mean your responsibility will be to observe and then make recommendations of what, if any, actions need to be taken if there's any damage done? I don't know. I mean, I guess my point is you're not in a position to stop what's happening. And I assume it's just really a matter of anything that would, any recommendations as to anything remedial. Does that sound right? I just want to make sure I understand what's going on.
I'm sure that's probably right. And you're right, I wouldn't be able to have very much say in it, but I'm certain that when you're out there, you have a conversation of like, hey, do you think maybe you could just go over there at 5 feet instead?
fine.
I'm sure that,
No problem with that at all.
yeah, I'm
Okay.
sure that'll work out when we're out there.
I just
Yeah,
want to
check
make sure I
everything with
understood what the
Dave.
procedure would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think if Rebecca has an issue with something that's happening, we're gonna just tell her that, we're gonna do it anyways. That's not, I don't think that's where we want to go with this. We're gonna
Okay.
certainly
No,
listen
I
to her and take her input and respect it
Okay.
very much.
Okay, thank you. I'm satisfied.
And I'll just add too, we need to follow up with the excavators and see when they can be available again.
Yeah,
So
we'll coordinate that.
we'll get back.
Rebecca.
Yeah.
Rebecca, you're the right person to coordinate that with, correct?
Yes.
Yes, I will coordinate that with Rebecca.
Okay, is there anything else we need to discuss on this?
I would just ask, Mr. Chair, because as we should, we take enforcement orders from your commission very seriously and respect them. So with that said, would we be deemed, if we do that, if we do what's being proposed here, that we would be in compliance with your enforcement order? Because I really don't want to leave that hanging, and it's conditioned that we're going to do what we said we're going to do. But I just want to make sure that we're on the same page on that.
Right, Rebecca, they've met the requirements of the enforcement order with what we've discussed tonight, correct?
Yes, I think that if we go through all this process, it is more than enough to say that they are in compliance with the enforcement order.
Thank you.
Are you looking for something documented, Brian?
No, I think it's on the record. I think we're fine with that.
Okay. All right, that being said, we'll move on to our next topic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just
Rick, you
want
ready to move on?
I just want to make one last comment, and I'll let this go. But when they talk about exempt activities, the examples that they give you are very non-intrusive. The methods that they're using, it's much less different than putting an excavator out there. I know you're going to do that, but I want to make that my position on that. That I think it would have been better to do a boring than it is to dig a hole, because they can't dig a hole straight down 12 feet. They have to, it's going to be more like a strip. So I think there's more, more turmoil there than you're thinking. And I'll let it go at that.
Right, Rebecca will be there to make sure it's put back in place properly and tamped and covered. Rebecca, you ready to move on, or? All right, so next up, we're out behind schedule, 7:15, DEP 313602, it's 237 Water Street, West Street Wash Joint Venture RT, notice of intent continued. for the reconfiguration of pavement and addition of car vacuum stations and fencing within a buffer to bank and within the riverfront to the Mill River.
Hi, good evening, John Ogren, Hayes Engineering. I represent the owner of the property, Lenny D. Orlando. I know we've been continuing this for quite a while. I just kind of wanted to update the commission on where we stand. Essentially, we were waiting for us to file with the Zoning Board of Appeals. And we've done that. We were on the agenda for the public hearing last night. However, the owner was unavailable, so we continued that. So I was hoping we'd be a little further along with the zoning board when we came before you tonight. The only other thing I have to present to the commission is that in the last hearing, we talked about putting some sort of curbing, Cape Cod berm along the river where the vacuum stations were going. And then it was kind of, in looking at it, it would take some reworking of pavement and regrading to make sure that we didn't end up with puddling along that side. So it was suggested, I believe by Mr. Luciani, that we not go forward with the curbing and provide essentially a vegetated swale along that side between the vacuum stations and the Mill River. And we've submitted a plan that shows that. If I can share my screen, I will show that to you.
Yeah, you can share, John.
So just a quick refresher, we were talking about adding some vacuum stations, a total of 9. There's existing vacuum stations here. We're also installing a fence, a trash fence along the river, or basically that along the edge of the pavement. And so this green line here is essentially where the area that we were talking about putting the grass swale in. It's fairly small. It's because we don't really have a lot of room to work with in this area. There's a detail shown here that shows it's basically a total of 3 feet wide. It's 1 foot at the bottom, and it's a 2-to-1 slope. So it ends up being about 6 inches in depth. And I think the idea was just to create an area that it would catch some of the rain before it, the surface runoff before it potentially heads towards the river itself. And that's pretty much where we stand with the project at this point.
John, is that swale just to slow down any runoff, going through it and over its bank, or is it to direct that runoff to another location?
Yeah, it's not really directing it one direction or another. Maybe it's a swale because it's a depression, but it's almost like acting like a berm. So that there's really just kind of a small area in here where it's a little bit, it's very flat through this section. That's why it looked like it might puddle in here. So there's just a small section of this pavement that most likely discharges towards this vegetation in this area. The majority of this pavement either heads out towards Water Street or heads back towards this infiltration swale towards the rear of the property. It was just for that small areas, if the water ended up heading in towards the river direction of the river, kind of give us some sort of vegetated buffer before, kind of capture it and hopefully provide some treatment before, if it does end up going towards the river.
Would it make sense to extend that swale and grade it such that it heads to that retention area towards the bottom of the drawing?
Well, I know it's not really clear here because like I said, it's pretty flat. There are contours on here, but 1 foot contours, but it's so flat that there's like a 61 here and a 60 here. So essentially looking at the more detailed topo, this water here flows back towards the drainage system in the back. So that extending it here isn't going to do anything because this is all headed towards this swale in the back. I mean, we can, I can extend it, further down along here. But I don't know that it's going to do much. Same thing in, heading out towards Water Street. This water pretty much all flows down and out towards the road. Actually, there's towards the road, and then there's a trench drain kind of at the entranceway that catches it and puts it into a infiltration, basically a concrete infiltration basin out in front of the car wash.
My thought was if you had cars coming out of the car wash, maybe dripping some soap and water, and they go to the vacuum stations, and then you could catch that in that swale and direct it to the management system and away from the river. But I don't know if your grades would work.
Well, I mean, we pretty much have the swale to the end of the from either end of the vacuum stations. I mean, these two vacuum stations obviously are gonna flow, any water coming off the cars is gonna flow towards this stormwater management in the back. I don't know. I would think typically people probably vacuum first and then do the car wash, but
Now, we did see towards the, towards where the dumpster enclosure is in the back corner, we did see water coming out of the car wash into the paved area, flowing back towards that direction. I know we had talked about that. Don't know if it was the seals on the doors of the drive-through or where the water was coming from.
yeah, I do not know the status of that. I know that the owner had contacted basically the overhead door contractor to ensure, basically get that fixed so that there wasn't that water leaking out.
Okay,
I do not know if that's been done yet or not.
okay. Were there any other questions or comments from the commission at this point? Knowing we're going to continue.
I have a question. Ready?
Yep.
All right, let me just ask a quick question here. So when they knocked down that existing building back in like 2000 or whatever it was in that order of conditions, there's the order of conditions in 2000, and then there was the amended order that came out and amended it 2 years later, I think, 2002. And that amended order talked about removing pavement up to the backside of the vacuum station. So the one where it says vacuum island to be removed, approximately to back that. And that was in the amended order of conditions. And now I know there was a certificate of compliance issued on that amended order of conditions. Was there any other permitting that was done to approve the pavement that is located behind the existing vacuum station and what looks like would be that green swale / fence line? Was there any other like permitting or anything submitted to cover that expansion of pavement there? John, do you know?
I'm not aware of any.
I'm just trying to get from the last filing to the current filing. And there's the last filing asked for or required pavement to be removed. And now this filing has pavement in the location that was supposed to be removed.
So you're referring, Rebecca, where that says that note in orange, pavement to be removed area?
Not really. So if you look, do you see the top vacuum island? It
Yeah.
says vacuum island to be removed. It's like
Right.
that rectangle there. When you look at an old plan that went with the amended order of conditions that was approved there, the section that was highlighted for pavement to be removed sort of ran to the back two corners of that rectangle closest to the river. So anything but located behind that existing vacuum was to be, the pavement was to be removed. And that was the last order of conditions. And now we have this new one, and I didn't know if there was anything in between that permitted the pavement from behind to where it is now.
And was there a certificate of compliance for that?
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I haven't, I'd have to go back through the file. I did look at it. It was quite a while ago now. But as far as I recall, the as-built plan that was submitted with the certificate of compliance showed this edge of pavement. And that was basically what was used to issue that certificate of compliance.
Well, I have two as-built. So in 2003, right after the amended order, there was a request for certificate of compliance with an as-built plan that showed the pavement removed. And then in 2014, 11 years later, when the certificate was issued, it showed a different edge of pavement. So are you saying that the certificate of compliance permitted the additional pavement?
Well, I mean, when you say permitted, that's, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that this essentially we submitted an as-built plan stating that this was, the conditions on the site, and we requested a certificate of compliance. I'd have to look back to the file to see if we had also submitted a letter. Typically we would submit a letter that stating, where this as-built plan deviated from what was approved essentially, or what was in the order of conditions. And then based on that information, the commission would either issue the certificate of compliance or not.
I don't have that letter. You know what? I think this came around when they wanted to, there was that small addition. It's like 70 square feet or something to that effect. And I think they determined that was.
Yeah, the addition was essentially
Right.
in this area in here.
They said it was so minor, it didn't warrant anything.
What's
It was
that?
all- That addition, I think it was a request for determination, and they determined that it did not need a filing. So at that point in time, that must have been around 2004. Is that around the time of the certificate? I don't have a letter. I only have an email from you in June 26th of 2014. It says I'm requesting that the commission revisit the issuing of certificate of compliance. We had requested it back in October of 2003. Anyway, something for us to think about.
Why wasn't the certificate issued when it was requested in 2003? Did we know, or?
I
Why there-
think at the time it said they hadn't put on the binder coat.
Or maybe it was only binder and they hadn't put the top coat on.
Oh, is that what it is? Something about like that. It was
Okay.
that, yes, that, and I don't think, I can't remember, but I'm not, I can look it up right now, but I'm not sure if they had finished planting all the trees either. I can look.
Can I just say something while you're doing that? Don't we have something from the town about the stormwater drainage system for this property? Am I?
Yeah, there is an email.
Yeah, I'd like to understand this.
Can you find that, Bob? It came this morning.
Yeah, it's in my email. I do have it.
While you're doing that, I have the letter from 2003. It just says that you're right, John, finished course of pavement needs to be done. And a portion of the riprap that was supposed to have been removed hadn't been removed yet. That's what this letter said.
So are you suggesting the possibility, Rebecca, that we issued that the certificate of compliance was done based in 2014 based on a 2003 as-built plan? And in the interim, some work was done without any further NOI. And now we're looking at this being a redevelopment. Am I sort of reading this? I mean, am I understanding what you're suggesting may have happened?
I think I followed what you just said, but yes, it is a redevelopment. Yes, you have to go through the redevelopment.
No, but the point is that if the certificate had been issued, and the as-built showed that had been removed, and then it had been repaved in the interim, that would have required an NOI.
I suppose, though, yes, because it would have, right. So they
Right.
had a
It's work in the
certain work that was permitted and allowed, and then, which was their order of conditions. And then they submitted an as-built that showed that it had been completed as the order had required.
Well, we're not saying
Then
that it was done, it just hadn't.
Wait a minute, in 2003, that's what happened. There was the binder coat hadn't been done and the riprap hadn't been done, or whatever the top
But
coat.
the
whatever.
as-built showed the pavement had been removed.
In 2003. In 2014, there was the second request that said, hey, by the way, we want to put an addition, we're going to do a request for determination. And the old certificate of compliance was never issued 11 years ago. So at that point, there's a new 2014 as-built that showed a different location of pavement.
And we issued a certificate of compliance based on that plan?
I mean, the certificate of compliance doesn't reference a plan. That's exactly what I looked at. It doesn't reference one. That's my assumption. But I didn't find any record of it being documented that the commission approved the pavement to go beyond the existing location. I think I sent, did you guys get the emails I sent you?
Yeah, actually, I have it on my computer right now.
Or just the different plans, just to give you an idea.
Yeah.
And Peter, so the thing is, when you're considering whether or not an existing activity is moving closer to the river for your redevelopment purposes, I think that this is important history to consider.
I think so. I agree. I concur wholeheartedly.
I mean, it sounds like what you're intimating is that what was approved or the as-built plan that accompanied the certificate of compliance, that the edge of pavement is somehow different than what's out there today?
That I don't exactly know for sure because I don't have that plan, but what I can tell you is the last public hearing notice of intent order of conditions that was amended in 2002, that was originally filed in 2000. There's a lot of process with that. In 2002, it was amended, and that amended plan, which is the last thing that the commission issued an order of conditions on, which means that this last thing that they brought before the public hearing in this type of meeting, it showed removing the pavement. That was part of the requirements. And now if you take that last approved plan and compare it now with the situation that we have now, they're different. So I'm trying to figure out that difference and decide what we do about that difference, or how we handle that difference, or what does that difference mean? Does that make sense?
Rebecca, and what you sent, did you send a copy of the 2012, the 2014 plan that was submitted?
No.
Because it'd be interesting to know whether 2014 plan, how that stacked up against current conditions.
Yeah, I don't have the proper paperwork on 2004. Maybe John, maybe like you said, you might have that a proper letter. I just have that email.
I thought you said that there was an as-built submitted in 2014. No, there was no updated as-built.
Yes, there's a updated in 2014 or since 2014. You meant
No, in 2014.
yes, in 2014. Yes,
Right.
I have one in the
But
file.
But it raises the possibility that the pavement we said that needed to be removed in 2003 was removed. And then it was repaved. An as-built plan was submitted that the commission approved. A request was never made, when the work was done to put the pavement back in. No NOI was done. It just suggests some sort of irregularity. That's all. And now that we're at a redevelopment, we're sort of saying, well, this is the way it is, and we're going to make it a little bit better than the way it is. But it just strikes me that there's an irregularity here. Something happened.
Rebecca, I'm going to repeat. You didn't send us the 2014 as-built, did you?
Correct.
Okay, so I would like to see the 2014 as-built compared to the 2003 as-built.
So there is, and John, I think you can probably confirm this. I have a plan in there, but it's not with anything. That was my assumption that that's what it was for. But I don't know that for sure because I don't have, all I have is an email from John on June of 2000, what did I say? 14, saying, let's revisit this. So I don't have whether or not that was the one. So I have it in the file, but I don't know whether or not that was the one that was used because I don't have that information.
So maybe John could find out just what you said, Rebecca, if there's a 2014 plan.
Yes, and whether like if he might have, and I don't have it, and apologize, it's not in the file, but he might have the letter that was submitted that says these were all the changes, and I don't have that, so I don't know. So then it would become the question of how you approve those changes
right
through that process, if that's how it worked out, what that means. Because that's not really the process that you would approve that under.
Well, maybe John could look for that and have it for our next meeting.
Yeah, and if he sends it to me, and then we'll put it all together and we'll send it out.
Yeah, I mean, I'll pull out, records from our file and go through it. I mean, I have the as-built plan from 2014, dated July 25th, 2014. And the edge of pavement looks the same as what was submitted with this notice of intent.
Which was different than what it looked like in 2003 then, John.
Again, it's been a while since I've gone through this, but my understanding was there was an amendment.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was subsequent to the 2003, but I don't know that.
No, it was before. The amendment was in 2002. The original order was in 2000.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and I think that amendment showed the pavement that is reflected on the as-built of the 2014
No. No, that's what I'm saying. I
So-
have it. And the approved plan shows, and that's why I was specifically referencing that one, because I think that's really the one that was the last one that was approved through this process here. That one showed removal of the pavement back to that back of that rectangular vacuum island. So that's the last of like order of conditions or approval process, was pulling the pavement back. And like I said,
Let's back up for a second. I mean, so again, we'll have to verify this, but the 2014 as-built plan,
yeah,
you're saying that pavement looks different than what's shown on the current NOI plan?
No,
No.
Okay. So my point is that if we can verify that the 2014 plan was what was used to issue the certificate of compliance, then why are we not able to move forward based on that?
Well, I see it differently, that if the 2003 as-built was accurate, showing pavement removed, and the 2014 plan also is accurate, showing pavement was reappeared, that indicates that work was done between 2003 and 2014. And so that's what I'm inferring, if both those are accurate. You know, if one of them wasn't done in mistake, that's different. But if they're both accurate, then the only conclusion to be drawn is that work was done between 2003 and 2014. And your point is that if we approve the 2014 plan, even though work, you know, that showed work having been done in the interim, with no NOI, but nevertheless we gave the as-built, are we precluded from that? I think that's what we're saying here, is that shouldn't have been, the procedure shouldn't have, you know, wasn't followed. We didn't catch it. But that's the difference, is how do we, you know, if the delta between the 2003 and the 2014 reflects work done in the interim period without an NOI, but was nevertheless approved, but was nevertheless a certificate of compliance was issued. It's just a very confusing, you know, the effect of our approving the 2014 as-built is interesting, but it's troubling to me that if those plans are accurate, that work done in the interim.
So can I offer a suggestion? John goes back through his files, sees what, look to see what he can find, if anything, contacts Rebecca and tries to figure out, you know, what happened here. Are we missing information? Is there a document missing?
I agree that there's just a question of what on earth happened. That's right.
So yeah, so let's let John and Rebecca kind of work offline to try to get to the bottom of this. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Bob, did you find the letter from the town?
I have the letter from the town. John, can I, I'm gonna stop your sharing.
Yep.
No, we don't want that. Actually, I need to go back and find that letter. I had it. Here it is. All right. All right, here's a letter from engineering department concerning vegetated swale at 237 Water Street. John, I don't know if you've got this letter or seen this letter.
Yes, I have seen it. I
Okay.
got it last night.
Okay. Any comments?
my comment is that, and I agree with that, it doesn't meet the requirements of the stormwater handbook, but that's not the intent of this grass swale. We were just looking to improve the situation and provide some treatment or basically slowing down any runoff that could potentially go towards the river. You know, I'll state again that we're not adding any pavement. We're netting less pavement on the property than what is currently exists, about 195 square feet. You'd be required to treat any new paved surfaces, but that's not the case here. This was something that the commission had asked us to add to the plan to basically improve the situation. You know, and they even called out, they said, understand that not every requirement can be met, you know. If the standard isn't to go back and look at stormwater, the stormwater handbook and redesign the whole site.
So the swale being referenced here is the 6-inch deep swale behind the vacuum stations.
I believe so, yes.
John, notice he's using a word, I'm not sure if it's a word. He's using the word constructible or able to be constructed. You differ with that?
I am not sure what he means by that. I mean, it is, the area is very tight in there. You know, there is not a lot of room to work with. But again, we're talking about a total width of 3 feet. I'm sure we can make that work. I mean, we're talking about putting in a swale that's 6 inches deep. It's not like we're building it, you know, putting in a big trench or anything.
Well, were you gonna do as Eric Sherman requested?
What is it? What did he request?
Please provide additional grading and detailed information to show how the swale is constructible, so able to be constructed. And if possible, expand the swale so treatment can be provided for as much of the area as possible.
I don't think any of that is necessary. I think it's excessive. Essentially, we're going to take the existing grade and we're going to lower it 6 inches in that area and, you know, revegetate it.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the intention of the letter is kind of what I was getting to, you know, extending the swale further down the property and running into that management area. I'm not sure.
Rebecca, maybe you think you could speak with Eric Sherman?
Sure.
Does that make sense, Bob? And,
Yeah,
everyone?
yeah, because not totally clear on what he's asking for or
I
what
think it would make-
he's
I think it would
suggesting.
make more- I think it would make sense for John to speak with Eric and just, you know, finalize how they go.
I certainly can talk with Eric and get some
And-
clarification.
Yeah, and maybe Rebecca could be part of that conversation also. So we're kind of on the same page.
Right.
Again, you know, this vegetated swale was added at the request of the commission. It's not something that was proposed. You know, I don't think it's a bad thing to add that swale there. You know,
John,
any
it's better
additional
than what you
treatment
were
is good.
proposing. It's an improvement over what you were proposing, John.
No, I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it, but you know, part of the reason why it wasn't shown initially is that there's not a lot of room there to work with. And
Well, maybe he should pull things back a little bit and give you some more room.
Right. What
as
does
soon
that
as we
tell
start,
you?
as soon as we start proposing this stuff, this is exactly the responses that I was expecting. You know, that you didn't meet all these criteria, and you know, I think the commission sees it and we see it as an improvement. I mean, I don't know why we need to get into the gory details. I mean, everyone feels that this is an improvement to what's existing. We're willing to go forward and do it. Let's move forward.
And not to put words into Eric's, mouth, but it looks like he thinks the idea can be improved upon further, is kind of my interpretation of that letter. But you'll have a conversation with him, right? And maybe Rebecca, you can join also. Kind of talk it out.
Okay. I'll do some research and contact Eric.
All right, anything else on Water Street? Any other questions or concerns from the commission? Any questions from the public? All right, so we'll continue, John, till June 9th, if that works for you.
Yeah, I believe the Board of Appeals, we would continue to June 8th, so that should work out good.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Good night.
All right, good night. All right. Rebecca, you ready to move on?
Yep.
All right, so we are behind schedule a little bit. Next up is DP 313608. That's 200-400 Quantapowhat Parkway. Public hearing continued, notice of intent for the construction of a multi-story building. And I do see the applicant is here.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So we didn't have any new testimony. I think just as a general update, provided that there's any draft conditions to review tonight, we'd be happy to review them. I think there's, I believe Brian McGrail is on here as well, or at least was earlier. Let's see. Yeah, he's on there. Brian's going to have an update from some conversations with Town Council Tom Mullen regarding some of the conditions that we're working on with the ZBA as it relates to some of the protection areas. There was a ministerial error that we identified on our plans that we're reissuing this Tuesday. This is something we just identified, unfortunately. So we will be reissuing those to the commission on Tuesday, directly followed with print copies to all the commission members, just so you have that final copy. But I guess I'll pose a question if there were any. I don't know if BSC was engaged to work on any of these conditions where we stand there.
I can answer that. So I think we were sort of in a holding pattern. We had done one change order, or maybe two change orders for some of the work. And I know that we emailed today about the check that we thought had been issued, hadn't been issued, et cetera, et cetera. So we do have to, we're just going to square that up. And then I think that in the event that BSC is to be used to help draft the conditions, I don't think we have financial coverage for that right now, because I think that we've already gone over that allotment, then had the change order. So I think that's something that if you guys wanted to do, you would have to talk about that today. But I think we'll get the financial thing squared away within the next, I don't know, week or so, whatever that might be, to clear up all that stuff.
Were you at the last hearing?
No.
So we talked about that and they agreed they would pay for the additional work.
from BSC to cover the,
To the
yeah.
draft order of conditions, yes.
yeah. We were still in a holding pattern because we hadn't gotten the last check yet for the other change order, and there was some miscommunication as some thought it would have already been sent. We didn't, I couldn't find where it had been deposited, et cetera, et cetera. So we were sort of just circling around that first before we started getting into more checks.
But all I'm saying, Rebecca, is that they've already agreed that they would pay for it. That's all I'm saying.
Right,
Are we
right.
getting,
Currently, the commission has paid for $1,503 of the BSC consulting fee. So that's why they were waiting for the check. We were waiting for the check. Because you have paid that already.
Yeah, it's something that on our end, I think we sent the check and it didn't get deposited or something. Either way, it never got deposited. So we just reissued the check today. So that should be in the commission's hands, no later than next week.
so how do you guys want to handle BSC drafting the order? Is that, do we need to, I know we need to do another change order. What do you want me to include in that? Like, how is that going to go? I assume it's not going to be open-ended.
That's directed to us, Rebecca?
I think probably to everybody. I mean, am I just going to call Mapper and say, hey, write it up for us and come present it at the meeting and bill us, and we don't have any idea how much that's going to be?
So the task at hand is prepared the draft order of conditions, Rebecca, right?
Correct.
So I guess, are they gonna give us a proposal of how much that's expected to cost?
I think that's wise. I feel like that should be the best way to do it. And then I submit it over to the other guys for their approval.
Yeah, they should be able to give an estimate,
Right.
or not to exceed.
Okay, right. So Matt, does that sound like the right process that we're going to go through? I mean, I can email, I'm sure, Matt, we can just do it internally and get this going.
Yeah,
I
we
guess
can
that's
get
what I'm
this
trying to
pushed
figure out.
forward. Yeah, I think to the extent that they can produce anything before the next hearing would be appreciated on our end, of course. But no, we're more than happy to pay that, and we can get that handled.
Okay, so I will organize all of that and ask Matt to get started and to have as much as he can have ready for the next hearing, and he'll attend the next hearing and hopefully have a presentation on that. And then when I get the bill from them, I will let you know. That's how we should do that. Okay.
And does he have the minutes of the last meeting and Elaine's notes about what we said, which should be included in the order of conditions, Rebecca?
Okay, I'll forward that.
Right.
Okay, I have a question. As far as this check goes, where do we go back over where we stand with this check? What do we owe? And how much?
$1,503 is
So
outstanding.
right now, that's the money that we owe the consultant.
No, we don't owe the consultant anything. The
We're owed
consultant,
that money.
yes, we're
Oh,
owed that
we're
money.
owed that money.
Correct,
Oh.
correct. You have a
Okay,
small
yeah.
budget, Jimmy.
What's that?
You have a small budget.
Yeah, right. And
Very
so when
small.
are you gonna get that money to us then?
It was already mailed. The check was mailed.
Yeah, I can't buy any more pens or pencils in the office until I get them.
I'm surprised you paid it at all. Why didn't you just let the applicant pay it directly?
Because that's not how the consultant rule works. It's supposed to be in a separate account. And that's how it gets paid. It's
It gets
paid
paid
out of
by-
that
it gets
account.
paid by us.
Out of that account, right. So the
Right.
account is in a deficit, so the money is therefore deducted from the commission's budget.
Well, we don't like that.
No, we don't.
I can't even turn on the lights, nothing.
Jimmy, you're gonna be taking a pay cut.
Paper.
Okay, so we're gonna get that money by when?
So we just sent out a check again. Honestly, I think I might just, Rebecca, do you work at town hall on Tuesdays and Thursdays in
Yes.
person?
Yeah, I'm in person.
Sometimes when you send these things to town halls, they often get lost. I might just drive up there and drop one off. That might be better.
I think
So
that's wise.
I will plan to do that on Tuesday or Thursday next week.
Okay.
Good enough.
All right, was there something Brian was gonna cover with us?
Yeah, if I can, Mr. Chair, on
Please.
behalf of CCNF. So it's my understanding that one of the conditions that the commission is contemplating wants to implement some preservation of land to committed to be an open space. And am I correct on that?
Yes.
Yeah,
Great.
we talked
So-
about that last meeting.
So I'm going to share my screen if that's okay.
Sure, please do.
Great. So, as you know, I think as you might not be aware, but my client early on and to today has a commitment with the Friends of the Lake Quannapowitt to keep areas on this property protected and open, and some of them available for recreational use, meaning a path area. So there's really the areas to be protected are this woodlands area, which is 9 acres. Then we call this area here on this plan utility easement area. And then we have the third area is the lake path area where they're going to construct a new path and protect this land and make it available for public use in conjunction with the land that's already owned by the town. So this plan is part of what's been presented on an ongoing basis with the Zoning Board of Appeals, who is hearing this matter in a parallel path to you as this process has gone on. This project's been before them for years. So these areas to be protected are of concern to the Friends of the Lake. They're of concern to the zoning board. And I think at least this one, and perhaps all of them, are of concern to you. So we've been working through the zoning board with town council Tom Mullen on the best way to restrict this land and give the town rights in it, that it will not, that commitment will be upheld in perpetuity. So I've had numerous meetings with Tom on procedures. We're still talking about the best avenues, and also to make sure that conditions that would be put in by your commission and by the zoning board would be consistent in that regard. So I had a conversation with Tom yesterday, and I told him I was going to appear before your commission tonight, and he encouraged it and authorized me to say that I think he would like to provide your commission with suggested orders in this regard, and which will include probably some language regarding some restrictions that will go on this land in the form of some type of an agreement. And that's going to be done also, as I said, in conjunction with the Zoning Board of Appeals. And that's going to make sure that there's consistency. We wouldn't want you to have a condition in this regard that is trying to do the same thing the zoning board is doing, but they just kind of don't work cohesively together. So I think it's important that Tom, as town council, serve as point person on that with both boards, counseling both boards on how to accomplish that.
So he's gonna send us a proposed order of a condition, and the order of condition having to do with the protection of the woodlands area.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that the area that's because the zoning board, the commitment to the Friends is beyond the woodland area. It's also the utility easement area, and it's also the lake path area. And those are going to be preserved. So those three are going to be preserved through the zoning board process. That's already in process, and we're talking to Tom about it. But my understanding is your commission is focusing on the woodland area. Is that correct?
That's right.
That's my understanding. Yeah.
And that makes sense because the commitment with the lake path area is that's for a path and some town access, public access to that path. So Tom's focus with the zoning board is going to be the entirety of all of this. And I think his focus with you would be on the woodland area to make sure, because the zoning board is also going to restrict the woodland area. So it's going to have kind of a layer of double protection. It's going to be through your commission and also through them. But we just
So
want to make sure.
Brian, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to speak over you, Brian. I'm sorry.
No, go right ahead.
So did the ZBA meet up on this project last night?
Yes,
And so Tom is still developing the conditions for them, right?
yes.
Obviously.
That's a work
Okay.
in progress, Teresa.
Okay.
Yeah, but in Matt mentioned that you're focusing on this woodland area, and Tom and I talked about it. We said, boy, we just better make sure that both boards are in sync on this and they work.
No, absolutely. No, it's great. That's great.
Yeah. So Tom will be in touch. I talked to him yesterday, and I know you're hiring a consultant, but I'm sure, perhaps Tom can talk to the consultant also. I mean, but I just want
No,
to
the
make sure.
this consultant, I don't think will look at the particular condition. I doubt, but, or be
Yeah, I
equipped, but, because he's not a lawyer. Or not,
Yeah.
not that there's anything special about being a lawyer, but,
Brian, Brian, I have a question. At least I was concerned that this property, I think, should stay in as the owner, with the same ownership, but put restrictions on it so that we can't, do anything with it. Do you still have that in mind or not?
That's what Tom has in mind, Jim. Yeah,
Okay.
that's
So
what
it'd
Tom
be a
has.
conservation restriction or a conservation easement or something like that.
Something to that effect. Could be a regular restrictive covenant. There's provisions in the statutes for that.
yeah, the problem with that is that you'd have to remember to extend it every, you know that.
There's
But the ownership of the
exemptions to
property-
it, Teresa. There's exemptions to that statutorily. That if it's provided as a gift to the town, then it goes on in perpetuity on its own. There's no 30-year limitation. And that's one of the things that Tom and I are researching. We're working together on that. And
Okay.
So we're going to figure that out.
That's great.
But Brian, I would think that it would be important that the property's title stay with the original owner. Because if something happens on that property, the property owner becomes the responsible party. So if we have something happen at this project that has some effect on the woodlands, I wouldn't want to be the one that's responsible for fixing it up.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Jim. And the intent is it's all going to stay in one ownership.
Okay.
I mean, Tom Mullen agrees with that's the best way for that to work.
Okay.
But it will be restricted with belts and suspenders to clearly accomplish the goals of the Friends of the Lake who have worked out on this, and to accomplish your goals and the zoning board's goals.
Okay.
How were things left with the ZBA last night?
As Matt said, it's kind of the chicken and the egg, because I think, we're getting close to conclusion with them, and one of their goals is they want to make sure that they said it last night, that at the end of the day, they want to make sure that there's a connectivity with your commission, and that that everything is in sync. The plans are in sync. So they're always very cautious of that. They always say, where's conservation stand? We want to make sure that our plans are matching theirs, and we're rowing in the same direction on this. As a matter of fact, they usually, they're talking, putting a condition in their decision that we have to comply with any of your conditions. So I think everybody's rowing in the same direction here.
We like that.
Yeah. So that was my message, that, after talking to Tom, and he knew I was coming tonight to see you, that he will be corresponding with you.
Okay, great. Excellent.
Thanks, Brian.
And if he has any questions, I suppose we can work through Rebecca or you, Mr. Chair, with Tom.
Yeah, definitely. Keep Rebecca in the loop.
Yep. Okay, that's what I had.
Any other questions from the commission?
I have a quick question. Just logistically, so we want to make sure that you all have paper copies of the final plans. Does it make sense for me to drop that off on Thursday with Rebecca, or what's the best kind of distribution method for that?
Whatever day you're gonna meet and drop off the check. You know, drop off the plans.
Okay.
And we also want electronic version, obviously.
Yep. That'll come first. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Rebecca, can I just ask you if Matt drops off those full size plans, can you somehow get them to Jimmy's house?
Yes.
Because then I could pick it up over the weekend.
Do you guys want a full set of full-size plans for each of you? Is that, or you're
No,
just
I don't.
looking for one for you all to look at?
No, I'd like my own.
Well, not, but
Please.
is Matt going to do just one plan, or is it all the plans are gonna be revised?
Well, I think the set is probably quite large. Matt, you'd be better to answer that than
Depends on
me.
how much money you want me to spend, but up to you all. We have no problem issuing individual sets if that's the preference.
I tend to think that probably one paper copy or maybe 2 copies for the town would be enough, because I don't think anyone else wants to take them home, do they?
I can just use the electronic.
We're gonna have electronic versions then.
Yeah, all right, electronic.
Now, I was more concerned before, but I couldn't read them. They were so small.
All right, electronic is fine.
Okay, so we'll issue 2 sets in that case.
Any other questions from the commission?
No.
Are there any questions from the public? Yeah, I don't see any hands raised. All right, so we'll continue until June 9th. That's
Sounds
okay with
great,
the
thank you.
applicant? June 9th is okay? Okay,
Yes, it's fine.
okay, thank you. All right, excellent. Well, thank you. And
Thank you.
we'll-
Good night.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Good night, everybody. All right, Rebecca, we have some other business.
Okay.
DEP 13615, that's 7 to 11 Audubon.
Yep, we were waiting on a revised plan from them, and they did pass along a revised plan and narrative. I didn't receive it until this morning. So I spoke with them and I said, I just didn't get it. I didn't receive it in enough time to review it, and I didn't want to forward it to you guys because that doesn't give you enough time to review. So they agreed just to present it at the next meeting.
Okay, great.
And the only other thing that I'm not sure if it's on your agenda, is that the last thing?
Yeah, tree removal request, none.
We have one more thing that I had put on my end, but I'm sorry, I forgot to put it on there. And that is the open space plan, the contract with Horsley Witten. I think last time I sent it all to you guys, you wanted time to look at it. So I hope that you guys looked at it and would like maybe Jimmy to sign it to move forward, but you guys let me know.
I have a question. So who signs this? It says the town of Wakefield.
It's usually Jimmy.
So these kinds of contracts, so for example, I don't think a town can indemnify. So number 5 requires the town to indemnify. I don't think the town does that. So the question I had is does Tom Mullen need to review this contract?
I can forward it to him. Is that what we did last time with the?
I don't know, but again, there's no
We had that
way.
exact same, we had that, I remember, I'm having a deja vu moment.
It was the BSC one, I think.
So what do we end up doing?
I think what we ended up doing
I think
was
Tom took
you
it
guys-
out, didn't he?
Yeah,
You
there's no, the town doesn't indemnify. Are you kidding?
So I think you guys made your comments and I submitted your comments to, because I think you wrote on it, like we want to delete this or whatever. And then I sent it over to Tom and then he like redlined it and then they okayed the changes.
Right.
Okay.
So if you guys give me that stuff, I will do the exact same thing. I will send it to Tom
So,
and then
I
I'll send it
guess-
back to Horsley
okay.
Witten.
I can redline it tomorrow and send it to you, Rebecca. But I know Silvana made a comment about the lump sum doesn't include subcontractor costs for drilling and backhoeing, but there's not going to be any drilling and backhoeing, so I don't really care about
Yeah,
that
we-
sentence.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't need that to plate.
But
All right.
I also don't like that they're not going to give us. I mean, so this is a little bit backwards. Paragraph 3 again. I'll mark it up. Paragraph 3 says they're not going to give us a final product till we pay them. So the answer is we don't pay them until they give us a final product. They have it reversed. So anyway, I guess you can tell I have a few markups. I would suggest.
Right.
So I'll send that to you, Rebecca. But again, we should be signing it unless Tom Mullen approves it.
I agree with that.
Okay.
And who, does that come out of our budget?
No,
No.
See, that's
Okay.
why I think the town should sign it, not Jimmy. But
Steve,
um,
you want
I think,
Steve
I
Mayo?
think Steve Mayo
Right,
will sign.
right.
yeah,
So our
Steve,
job
yes.
is to make a recommendation to the town that it's signed, that we like this.
Well, then, is it beyond my purview then, or purview to even comment on it, Rebecca?
No,
Will
no.
Tom get insulted?
No. I
He'll
don't
be
think-
so
I think-
glad you did all his legwork.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's
So
right.
Tom is a wonderful town council, so
Right.
And
And
you're
would it
saving
be-
the
would it
town
be-
money.
And who would present it to would Tom present it to the town council?
No,
Who would?
the,
do
the
they
con-
need to approve it?
you mean the
And
Steve
what the
Mayo?
town
No,
council.
it'd be Steve Mayo to
It's
sign,
Steve
not the
Mayo.
whole town council, right, Judy?
I think so. I think it would just be Steve.
Okay. I'll tell you, you look at those agreements, you really can't, you're really relying on the reputation of the, I mean.
Well, that
there's
is true.
certain things-
Although-
There's certain things you don't want to agree to something you can't agree to, and
No, I
totally-
agree. But again, some things it's like, what are you kidding? We're not gonna.
Yeah,
we're
no,
not
I
gonna
agree.
agree to that. Right.
And
Okay, I'll send that to you, Rebecca.
Thank you. And I don't come back in till 2, well, I checked the email, but
You sent this as a Word document, did you?
I don't remember how I sent it. Because I think it was last, I don't remember.
Teresa likes that strike through feature in Word.
I do. Well, it's what I do for a living, Bob, so.
It is a great option. I use it quite a bit myself. You change it red?
I know,
I was right.
it's in shocking red.
Yeah.
Can I just make a point about the missing check from 200 Quantapowhat?
Sure.
Yes, please. do.
I mean, I know checks get lost at town hall. I don't completely buy into that because that is the same answer they gave when we didn't receive the initial check. That's why I made the point again of saying, we do not have the money.
Yeah,
I don't know why this is a difficulty and why they wouldn't have hand delivered the check after the first time when they said they thought we lost it.
because they're
If
contractors.
they thought they sent it, they would have put a stop payment on it and he never mentioned that. So I'm not buying it.
But Judy, just one question. Why would we pay the contractor if we haven't received the money yet
yeah,
from them?
Why would
mean-
they, why shouldn't they get paid? I understand that, but
well,
it was our
they shouldn't have
responsibility.
started work.
No.
I mean,
It was our responsibility to have the
pay them.
money in the escrow. There was a change order done February 8th for $1,500 and they didn't submit the check. There was a second order change order done that I don't know who said they wouldn't approve because they don't have any choice but to pay it. They can't disapprove it. So I just don't, I mean, things can happen, checks get lost. I understand that. I don't think it could, I mean, happening twice would be a little unusual on one project.
The only thing I'll say, in the scope of this project, this amount of money is not meaningful. So
Exactly. That's what makes it more disturbing to me.
It's meaningful to us, Teresa.
Don't
No,
nickel and
no,
dime
but-
us. Don't nickel
but
and
no.
dime us on something.
No,
just
no, I
for the sake
no,
of
I
it.
understand, Jimmy. No, I understand.
So let's see what happens next Tuesday or Thursday. And we'll take it from there.
Well, you know
And
what?
but it had, the money has to include whatever BSC decides the amount is gonna be, because if they just give us the $1,503, then there's no money until they send the next check for the BSC review of the order of conditions.
Well, we won't
That was
sign
my
the
point.
order until we get all the money.
Yeah.
Rebecca, maybe you could find out from BSC, I mean, how much they, get their estimate for what, or not to exceed number for doing the draft order.
That's what I plan on doing. So I'm gonna
No, no,
email
but
them.
maybe you could get that to, Matt before
Yes.
you, right,
Yes.
before, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. No, yeah, I'm just agreeing with you. Yes, I agree. I think that's definitely what I
The-
plan
the
on
check-
doing.
Right, so just as Judy says, the check includes both amounts, right?
Yep. Yes, and if I get it soon, I was planning on emailing Matt tomorrow. If I get it tomorrow, I'll forward it to Matt and he can bring the second check. Got it. Yep.
Right, all right.
Good idea.
We're all on the same,
Yeah.
the same page check wise, right?
Well, I think it would be two checks, one to clear up the outstanding balance and then another check for
Right,
the,
new.
yes.
I'm just saying he could bring the second check that with,
Right,
if
at the
we have a
same
good
time.
estimate.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to lump them together though.
No, because we'll never know what's happening.
Exactly.
They could be lumped together.
Yeah.
I think they could be lumped together too. This is not like.
Definitely.
Well,
It's
Judy,
all one,
excuse me,
yeah.
Judy is in the accounting department.
It's all one deposit, so it doesn't matter.
Right,
if you
yeah,
lump together.
exactly. Is
But I don't
anyone-
think the work should begin until we have the second check, if he doesn't bring it on Thursday.
I have a question. Does anybody know what the ministerial error was? Just curious. What was the ministerial error?
I don't know.
I'd be
I don't
interested.
know.
You could ask him when he drops off the plans, Rebecca.
Okay. I'll ask him.
Yeah, write it down, ministerial error.
Hmm.
That could be many
Yeah,
things.
it could be anything.
Yeah.
Well, the use of the word ministerial, it's nothing, it's very small, right? Very small.
Yeah, well, you don't know. They could be just saying that. You don't know.
Sounds like the State Department was involved, ministerial.
Well, yeah, you know.
Not just the administrative, error. It just wasn't
Yeah.
a clerical error. It was a
Yeah.
ministerial. So I think there's like,
They were very tactful when they used that word, I think. It's on purposely used instead of, oh, it's just an error.
Does anyone have any,
I gotta define
any-
fancy ways to describe my errors, apparently.
I know, that's my word. That's the word of the day for me.
Word of the day.
At night. I'm gonna use
Well,
that
I was gonna
when I need to, ministerial.
Let me ask a quick one. How do you guys feel about when the meetings, because I believe the meeting room is set up for hybrid meetings. Does anyone have any ideas of whether or not they would like to be in person when the time comes, or they prefer Zoom, or I don't know, just
they
just a
have to be,
thought.
they're gonna have to be both. Going forward, they have to be both.
No, I know the meetings do, but the attendance wise, I'm saying.
Yeah, but I think there's going to be some rule as to how many members have to be in person. I think that
Oh,
might be part of it. I think that might be part of it.
I didn't know that. When does that happen, Judy? Do you know?
Last November. They're still trying to figure out, they're still trying to do the fine tuning of the hookups.
I thought it would
Right
be
now,
done.
only the second floor conference room is equipped for it, and it's really
Right.
not that big.
No, it's not big. Okay.
Well, it's an
So they're
interesting,
still working on it.
it's an interesting phenomenon now that we're doing the remote meetings, that one is it facilitates greater attendance by commissioners. I think we're not, we, all the times we had, making sure we had at least a quorum. We really haven't had any quorum issues at all with this. And the second thing is, I just look at the number of participants is so much greater than when people have
No,
to.
that's not, the
We haven't gone on
participants,
vacation in like 3 years.
the number of
but I'm just saying-
participants
I'm just
hasn't
saying it's an
increased.
I haven't anyways.
And I know that the rules are the rules, and I'm just all I'm doing is making a comment that we just have not.
The
had a
number of
quorum.
participants hasn't increased, though.
You don't wait.
It hasn't,
You don't think so?
it hasn't increased. No,
Wait a minute. How do you know that?
You have empirical
because I
data
look
on this?
who's there at every single meeting. If anything, there are fewer people that attend,
I can't handle the technology.
apparently.
Oh my
Jimmy will
gosh,
be
that-
taking, Jimmy will be taking back over when we go back to the conference room.
I thought we had-
Right, that's right.
I thought we had a lot of meetings when it was just, we had many meetings. It was just,
Well, we have a lot of people, Peter, but sometimes they.
A lot of
two or three
consultants, right?
people Themselves.
yeah, all right. So maybe, and you know what they will say is that this has just been an unusually busy time for the commission. I mean, we,
Yeah.
you know,
Right, to answer your question, Rebecca, I like being in person, but it's so convenient not being in person.
I know. I prefer in person. I will probably try to stay for the meetings because I just think it's at least for myself.
Well, because you're in the office anyway on Thursdays, right? Yeah.
Not till 7, but yeah, no, I don't know. I just feel like it lends to a better product or solution in the end when
No,
people
I
are
agree,
all
it does, but
together.
Right. There's an extra 10 minutes to get to town hall.
Oh, you should. I gotta drive after those long meetings, and I have to drive
But
like
it's
a half
okay
hour.
on Saturday if you run around town.
Right. Rebecca, how
Well,
long was your drive?
Half an hour.
Okay.
Does anyone have any thoughts on the open space plan? Any ideas? Anything?
yeah.
Any ideas you'd like to see explored in the open space plan? Any thoughts on the planning board rules and regulations, subdivision rules and regulations?
Yeah, I would like to
Related-
see.
Why are
Yes,
they
what-
revising this?
Their rules and regulations are on their website and they're very sparse, I think. I think there could be a lot of overlap with what the commission requires, hopefully, in terms of plantings, trees, erosion control methods during site development, maybe protecting soil better. There are a lot of things that kind of stood out to me. I looked at a couple of other towns' subdivision rules, and they're a lot more in depth and more attuned to the environmental concerns. Like
There's
street trees, things like that, using native species,
Who
not
are we
only
to tell
relying
the-
on, what's that?
Who are we to tell the planning board what their rules and regs should be?
They asked for input.
The planning board has? Wow.
Yes, because they're upgrading their rules and regs.
Okay, well, that's a good opportunity.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
think so.
I think there's two, I mean, I think of open space, I think of two things. One is, you know, that regulation of private, you know, privately owned property being developed. But the thing that I find the most troubling is that we don't have a process for town-owned land. Like a developer could make an offer and then, you know, and then in a very short period of time, it could be sold without any thought about the larger picture of what the implications of, you know, selling town-owned land. And I know it's within the town council's, you know,
Right.
purview to
Right,
do it, but
right.
there ought to be something that like, there ought to be like some aspirational goals, like
That's
you
why
ought
we
to-
have an open space plan. Peter.
Right. And they do send it around for comment. So it's whether they look at the comment. But that's why
Yeah, but
this
they're-
update,
but
right, but that's
in
why
gen-
this update of the open space plan is important, because then you can lean back on that, and conservation can be more activist when there is a lot that you're interested in that's been commented on, attending the town council meeting and making a case for it. Because that's what makes the difference with a lot of these, is making a case for it. And I think that's what should be the
Yeah,
core
but I
of,
think the starting point is, hey, money is good, let's take it. And I think the starting point should be the opposite, that there ain't much open space. And so the starting
Right.
point should, what is the
Right,
compelling,
but
what is the
Right.
compelling reason you can entertain it? That's, I
Right.
guess, that's what bothers me.
I'll give you an example. Someone put in a request to purchase 26, I think it's 26 Woodland Road. It's off Greenwood Street, right near the Franklin Street end. And it was just a small lot. They just wanted to, you know, a buffer in the back of their lot. Nothing you could really do. There was a ledge, I think, there. And town council pulled it and didn't honor the request because they said there should be more open space. So I think they're starting to turn around.
Well, that's good, but it
Yeah.
would be perhaps good for them to start out with kind of an aspirational presumption that
Right. But
Well,
that's where I
again-
think selling the open space plan and selling the core of the plan, which should be what are the functions and values of
Mhm.
this open space and why should it be protected? Not just, we need open space, period. Everyone knows we should have it for aesthetics, but what are the functions and values? Is it flood storage? Is it wildlife habitat? Is it carbon uptake? Anything like that, that they can refer to and say, well, here's the reasoning for retaining it.
Yeah,
That's why I think it's important to have this plan.
Right. But I think that I just feel like we're pushing a rock uphill every time it's, hey, we're thinking about selling it. Find a reason why we shouldn't versus someone's made this request. And I don't know, it just seems to me like the presumption should be that open space is a desirable thing to have. And
I agree. And if that's not what their mindset is, then perhaps the commission can impress upon them why it's important.
I think.
So I think in addition to submitting comment letter, appearing at their meeting and advocating for retention of the lot makes a difference.
Yeah.
Whatever happened about those parcels? What's the status of that? The ones that they were offered to us to, if we wanted inherited, remember? Could that fall into the open space plan? No.
The town forest, yes.
Yeah,
Yes. That's gonna be the first part of the open space plan if I have my way. It was in the
Did we
1986
decide, we decided we were gonna do, did we decide that we were gonna go forward with that? Or
Yes.
not?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yes.
I'm just trying to remember, okay? Mr. Luciano, right?
Hey,
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, you told me to ask questions regardless. So now I'm speaking up and he shoots me down.
Okay.
So different
What did she
topic.
say?
Hey, Mary and Joseph.
Hey, different
Giovanna,
topic.
there are questions and then there were questions, right?
I think Rebecca had done a lot of work on justifying why we need open
Yes,
space.
yes,
Didn't
yes,
you,
yes.
Rebecca?
I just wanted to,
And we should resurrect that information that you put together.
Right. I think that was an excellent presentation. That in addition to putting it on a more granular level based on the lot in Wakefield. I mean, that was an overview of the value that, the monetary value living near open space. That can be the umbrella over the core talking points, which are what are the values of these lots in Wakefield. So I think that is Rebecca's whole overview is what we'll build on with the rest of our argument. And that's why I went to the planning board. They're on board with this. The more boards that come around to this, the easier it's going to be because it's more pressure put on the people that are making the decisions ultimately. And I mean, you could see how that happens at town meeting.
What happened to the bylaw 50-foot setback?
It
from the
lost
street?
by only a handful of votes.
Right,
But
but both Jim
All hope is
and
not
Matt
lost.
Lowry supported
and Jim
that.
Hogan from the planning board made a strong statement as well.
So
But one person stood up and said, let's wait until the bylaw review committee looks at it, which last time it took them 2 years.
Tim, can
So
you hear
that's just-
coyotes baying? Can you hear those coyotes? Listen.
yeah, I thought they were just regular dogs. I can hear from here too.
So Judy, I will tell you, I felt
Listen.
very bad when I read the
Yeah,
item.
Yeah, is that what it is? They are coyotes, are you sure? Not dogs?
Those are coyotes.
Sounds like dogs to me.
It's coyotes. What, Teresa?
I felt very bad when I read the item, and I think like 5 more people, if they had voted yes, that I
Right.
felt very guilty being the lapsed Catholic that I am for not attending the meeting.
So question on that.
Mhm.
I know somebody also stood up and said they thought it would be more impactful by getting rid of that, environmentally, it would hurt the environment by getting rid of it. So I don't know if that was the thought that prevailed or.
No.
So was it clearly explained that, hey, we have jurisdiction, we are looking out for the best interest?
It was explained. Yes, that was explained. And also that for 31 years, it was not enforced. That didn't matter in the least for whatever reason. 31 years. And then, you know who was enforced on? Greenwood.
Right,
3
I
out of
remember.
4 were on Greenwood.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the entire town council voted against it, against repeal.
Is that right? Wow.
Yes, and Matt Lowry was not happy about that. He spoke about that at the planning board meeting Tuesday night.
They were against it?
The town council, yes.
So it's unanimous?
That letter works like a charm, huh?
The letter?
Well, that did work in some ways.
So where did this thing fail, Judy?
What's that?
Where do you think this
Jim,
failed?
I think people, that's the problem with town meeting. If there's a group of people that one person brings with them and says, you know,
Yeah.
we're just gonna vote against this, the certain people spoke against every single article. And one said, oh, yeah, let's, you know, we shouldn't rush into this. And Matt Lowry made the point at the meeting the other night, there was a public process that the planning board held that parsed this entire thing out that none of these people took part in.
Right.
So to say at this point, oh, we need to step back and think about this. How many, so now they've appropriated $50,000 for the zoning bylaw review. So now they're gonna go over this again when it was already done for free at the planning board.
You
So
would
how does that,
You would think with Jim and Matt both in support of that.
yes, and that was
change.
another thing that infuriated Matt. The 2 boards were in favor of it and it was still,
And the town council didn't.
But you would
Yeah.
think that would get enough of the participants at town meeting to say, oh, they know what they're talking about. Okay.
right.
But clearly that didn't work either.
And Jim Hogan, when he spoke, he mentioned that it was selectively applied. And that, I think, part of it is people don't really look at all of the articles before they get there. They have a cursory glance of it.
Yeah.
So they didn't know the crux of the issue, and I think that's the tough part of town meeting.
It just sounded like it was a bad environmental thing to do. And that's,
Exactly.
oh,
Exactly.
okay, I'm not gonna want that to happen.
And that was promoted online as well, that it was going to be, you know, the great flood if this
Yeah.
was allowed to be repealed.
Locust too.
Exactly, exactly.
What do you?
But Jim might have something else to add to it.
No, I'm not gonna add anything right now.
Okay,
I'll wait
Okay.
till
I mean, town meeting
a little longer.
has been over the years, it's been a forum for special interest groups to kind of push what they want.
right. And that's the unfortunate part of it.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, that meeting approved a $114 million budget. And there was hardly a peep about any of it.
Yeah.
114 million.
I know.
So,
All right, well,
There goes the pay raise.
yeah.
You mean, there goes the Concom vehicle. The drone.
Yeah. Not the webcam though.
I was gonna say, what happened to the
The
webcam?
webcam.
Why wasn't that in the budget? And you know something? Why don't we put that in our budget?
Jim, I told you what to do. Ask one of the businesses at Audubon Road.
What,
There's
the
no
one that just got the
downside to
tax
them
relief?
paying for it.
The one that just got the tax relief, we should hit it
Yes.
first.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'll talk to Erin next week and tell her this is what we want.
yeah.
You should see all the webcams Lakewood and Pisaki has. They have a
I wanna hear
website full of
about
webcams. You can get.
Bob, don't
views.
tell us about it. You weren't even interested in this project.
I'm still not with us doing it. We shouldn't have to.
Oh.
No, you're right.
You
I
gotta
think that
reconnect with nature, Bob. Reconnect with nature.
No, I'm saying we shouldn't have to do it.
Why?
Because you get the
I agree.
businesses all around the locations to put them up.
I agree. And I'll find out next week. I'll talk to Erin. Don't
That's
worry,
where it
Jimmy. we'll
normally
get-
works.
Maybe Maybe next year we'll get one.
That's
I think we
right.
have to- I think we have to go out in the winter anyways, put something out there in the ice, through the ice to hold this thing up. Hold the camera up. I mean, how are you gonna support that thing out there?
Oh, you put them on trees, you put them on poles.
Right.
Anyway,
Chief
we've
Bob,
got
if you
them,
know all that, why aren't you helping out?
we've got them around here. We've got them around our house.
God. Okay,
So can you look at the planning board's subdivision rules and regulations, see if you have any comments, please?
I will, because that's, I didn't know they were doing that.
Because there's a section, yes, I mentioned at the last meeting. There's a section on street trees, and right now they have the tree warden, Dennis.
Yeah.
He consults on, but usually what happens is it's whatever they have available. But if the developer who is constructing the subdivision is paying for it, then who cares what's available? It should be what is the best tree for that area.
Yeah.
And I think part of that should be maybe Rebecca or Elaine could consult on the trees. And having, when instead of them stripping off a hillside, have some shrubbery, some kind of cover. So there's not, I mean, there's always so much runoff. They have a condition that the area has to be swept, kept clean at the end of construction. And that should really be at the end of every day. I mean, there's so many sites that you go by and it's just all sand and mud tracked into the street.
We have that
I don't
condition.
think they require, I don't know that they require catch basin protection. I mean, all that stuff should be written in their rules.
Yeah,
I think
but
that makes
we have those conditions also.
right, but if they're not areas that are jurisdictional to us.
Right.
But they would affect conservation if there's a jurisdictional area downstream. So that's what I'm saying. There are areas that can overlap with the concerns that conservation has, environmental concerns.
Good point.
And since they asked for comment, you know, there should be some collaboration.
Do you know where they are on the website under the planning board?
It should, it's right there, isn't it, on the left-hand side? The subdivision rules and regulations.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And what towns did you look at that were good, Judy?
I looked at Reading, theirs were pretty good. I did it, Acton had some really good ones.
Okay.
Yeah, I see it. Understanding the subdivision of land procedures, rules and regulations.
And I want to see if I've talked before about the Healthy Soils Action Plan that they wrote into law in Massachusetts about trying to preserve topsoils and better land management. A lot of it is directed at agriculture, but it's also about site development. So I'm trying to get more information on that. There's a Northeast Conservation District that I reached out to. I haven't heard back from them, but I wanted to see if the planning board could incorporate some of that as well. Because it talks about not just stripping the whole site clear. You're trying to retain as much topsoil as possible because it's the nutrient level layer, and trying to better work around trees instead of just, you know, putting in the tree wells that aren't effective. And
yeah. Idea.
All right. Anything else?
Yep, I have one quick note if
Okay.
everyone's all ready to go. So just real quick, Elaine has an opportunity to work more hours in the town of Winchester. So I think that is beneficial for her to increase her hours there. So we've talked and we thought that the best solution might be that right now we're a 20-hour position. I work 10 and she works 10. And I think what we're going to try to do is I'm probably going to start working up to 19 And she will work between 1 and 5 on like a more consultant type of position. So basically, I was thinking we would, and today when we were talking about witnessing the borings over at Hemlock Road as something that would be exactly the type of thing that I would probably pass off to Elaine, because it's easier for her to do it outside of the town hall. And do a lot of the site visits, for instance, if there's any on a Saturday, like that type of stuff is easier for her to do. So we're going to try it out, work it out. And just depending on what the workload is, it might vary a little bit. And so I don't think she would be able to work in Wakefield much more than 5. And I think 5 might be pushing it. So we'll see how it goes. But for the most part, it ends up in a slightly more hours than we have now, because I'll do 19. And on some weeks, she may do up to, let's say up to 5, and that's a total of 24, which we do have permission from Steve Mayo to do this. I've already spoken to him about it. So if that's cool with you guys, I think that's probably the best way to work this out. And I guess we can see, I think she starts July 1st.
So she wouldn't be coming to meetings anymore.
No, we talked about that too. I think there's some things that are beneficial, just probably project dependent. So in the event that there was an ANRAD, let's say, and she did the whole site inspection and approve the delineation, let's say, the choices are either she can just write it in a quick report, but if there's something that she wants to talk about, then she would probably come to the meeting, because we have the hours for her to come to the meeting too. It's just how we decide to split them
Right,
up.
I understand. Okay, and is her additional hours as a conservation agent in Winchester?
Yep. Yeah,
So with town meeting approving the budgets, is there any opportunity to increase hours now before?
No,
All right, it's final. So we would potentially end up with a variance.
no, you wouldn't.
No.
Money will
Rebecca-
just get, money will get
Rebecca said-
moved from, there's money in the budget. It just gets moved from another account.
Right,
Okay.
Rebecca said Steve Mayo said it was okay, so.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but okay, but we still would have to potentially answer for
No,
unbudgeted expense.
no,
Okay.
you don't. Can I make a suggestion, though? The budgeting won't come up again until December. But you may want to think about increasing the hours if that's what Rebecca wants, another 10 hours, something like that.
I can't. So the way it works in Wakefield is
Don't ruin my plan.
Oh, sorry. So it's no, what it is that you either have to work under 20. So that's why the 19 is a magic number, or over 30. That 19, that between the 20 and 30 mark, they don't have any position. They won't hire anyone for that, because there becomes a conflict between they're required like federally to offer benefits, but in order to have benefits in Wakefield, you have to be in the retirement system. In order to be in the retirement system, you have to work 30 hours. So in order to cover that sort of inconsistency, they don't hire or allow anyone to work between 20 and 30 hours a week. So
Rebecca, do you have an idea of how many hours other nearby towns have for their agents?
you know what, it kind of varies, because sometimes towns have someone who does specifically the site visits only. Sometimes the towns have agents who do just the administrative work. So everyone kind of uses their agent and in their own unique way. So it definitely varies throughout the towns, depending on, like, sometimes they have the planner does some parts of it, and then there's the site inspection person who does another part of it, and they piece it all together. So I mean, since I've been here, it's always been 20 hours. I don't think 20 hours is enough. If
Yeah,
you,
that's what I was talking to Jimmy about, like, what is the other town's workload compared to our workload? I said I'd look into it. I haven't done it so far. Like, how many projects do they get? How complicated are the projects? Are we way under? I understand we can't get more budget now, but are we way under on our hours and overworked? And is there an opportunity for us to,
I think it fluctuates, definitely fluctuates. And the thing is, is that there's a requirement for certain things administratively that we have to do. You know, certain things have to get out in 21 days. And so I have to prioritize that regardless of what else is happening in town. So those things need to happen. And what happens is, depending on the number of hours and whatnot, is certain other things just start to fall away. And we're very lucky that Judy volunteers and picks up some of that slack. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate her for that. But things like the website, things like, and the other thing that's happening is the planning board wants to meet on big projects more. ZBA wants to talk about big projects more. They're starting this committee that wants to meet once a month to talk about and these are all departments getting together sort of like to have these types of meetings, which is absolutely fantastic. I'm so happy that these things are happening. But like I said, on the other side is that sometimes it's just, you have to do the bare minimum because that's the only amount of hours that we have. So it gets, I mean, I don't know, I guess it probably depends on what you would want out of your conservation department. You know, do you want it to have time to look at open parcels and have, you know, pollinating gardens and do plantings around town? You know, those are extra things and they're great, but right now we can't do them. We just don't have enough time. So it's that kind of stuff. So I think it just depends on each town's individual and who they have do what and where they want to go.
Would it be weird if I reached out to other towns to find out
No,
hours and what they do? And
you wouldn't believe some of the calls.
what was that?
I said, I get way crazier questions than that sometimes.
You can look on the MACC website. They usually have a list of how many hours the agents do. I know they had a spreadsheet at one point.
Thank you.
Because a lot of towns run into the same problem. Linfield just hired, they have a site inspector and their agent, I think, also does planning, some kind of the planning as well. Melrose, I think, has 15 or 20 hours there. It's just one person.
Yeah.
And
if we
Stoneham
have
has
way
no one.
less, you know, if we both.
Stoneham doesn't have an agent.
Wow.
Does not.
No.
Yeah.
But a little
when I
town
was-
like Boxford has a full-time agent. It's about priorities. It's about the town's priorities is what it comes down to. When you look at the list of towns and the hours they have, you can see the ones that value open space. That's the bottom line.
Okay.
And that's why getting this plan done is going to elevate the importance of conservation. And that's why I think it's important that it's done well.
Okay, anything else? Judy,
Nope, all set.
Rebecca,
That's everything I have.
all right, so with that, would somebody like to make a motion to?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a
Second.
second? Any discussion?
None.
Hey, all in favor, Ken,
Yes.
Jimmy,
Yes.
Savannah,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
and I also vote to adjourn. Good night, everybody. Have a nice long weekend.
You too.
See you in June.
Thanks, you too.
Take care.
Good night.
Good night.
So if you're going to